Here's a very quick episode in response to the Kursk counterattack, the bold move Ukraine seems to have made over this weekend. Ukraine has launched a new offensive in Russia's Kursk Oblast. Earlier reports on its success are incomplete and mixed. Much of the detail is coming from Russian Z blogger community and therefore needs to be viewed as potentially unreliable. This has not stopped the first media headlines reporting on Ukraine's surprise counterattack in the Kursk today from leading with the reactions of Russian voices and incorporating their phraseology into article headlines. Last-ditch attempt to catch Russia off guard and last chance to take back land, scream the headlines, directly reflecting quotes from Z bloggers. But both statements involve massive assumptions and indeed reflect Russian interests rather than reality. There's no way to tell how many new offensives or counteroffensives Ukraine has the resources for, or indeed will have in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, etc. Throughout the war, it's served the interests of Russia to reinforce the myth that it cannot be beaten, that a Russian victory is inevitable, that every setback for Ukraine is a de facto catastrophe, and every catastrophe for Russia is of no consequence at all. And many in the media have duly complied in their use of both explicit and implicit language to add to this strategic mythology of Russian invincibility, their capacity to apparently tolerate any hardship, and their infinite resources. Well, of course, none of this is true. Phrases such as bold and surprising could equally be applied to the situation, but it seems there is a reflexive bias in the minds of some journalists and policymakers to automatically position Ukraine as a victim, incapable of achieving victories and underplaying their very real successes. Ukrainian troops apparently attacked Russian forces in several directions in the Kursk Oblast in a surprise attack. It's been wryly noted by some Ukrainians that the timing is perfect, not only just before Trump's inauguration, in a move that makes Moscow look weak, but also likely catching Russians known as heavy drinkers, likely still nursing hangovers from New Year and awaiting the Russian New Year on the 7th of January. Alexander Kishstein, acting governor for the Kursk region, said that he had held a working meeting with General Yevkurov, but that he couldn't divulge the details. I can say one thing for sure. The government of Kursk region will do everything possible to help our armed forces in their sacred fight against Nazism, he said. And by Nazism, of course, he is referring to Ukraine, which is part of the absurd propaganda lie that actually Putin has used as an excuse for this war. Ukraine seems to have carefully planned its Kursk counterattack by building up forces and sending minesweepers to clear routes towards Russian lines ahead of the attack. This at least has been reported by Russian military bloggers. Around 9 a.m. Moscow time, in order to stop the advance of Russian troops in the Kursk direction, the enemy launched a counterattack with an assault group consisting of 2 tanks, a mine-clearing vehicle, and 12 armored combat vehicles with paratroops towards Berdin village, the Russian Defense Ministry also claimed in a statement. War Gonzo, a pro-Russian military blogger, said Ukraine had also deployed specialist drone jamming units in its counteroffensive. At night, he said, the enemy carried out measures to clear the approaches. This, he said on his Telegram channel. Colonel Kassad, a pro-Russia military blogging channel, said Ukraine had moved large volumes of US and NATO equipment in December and November to the Sumy and Chernihiv regions that border Russia ahead of the counteroffensive. Pro-Russia military channel Operativne Svodki, operational reports, has said that its units are heroically holding the line amid Ukraine's new attack in Russia's western Kursk region. This suggests that Ukraine may well be making advances. Otherwise, the blogger would be claiming glorious victories for the Russians. For his phrase that he uses, heroic, here, read that the Russians are getting pulverized. The source claimed artillery and small arms battles were taking place, and Ukraine was using Western armored vehicles to bring in large numbers of infantry. Ukrainian and Western assessments say some 11,000 troops from North Korea have been deployed in the Kursk region to support Moscow's forces. Russia has neither confirmed nor denied their presence, but many videos now attest to their presence and suggest that casualties amongst the North Koreans are mounting. A Russian channel has claimed Ukraine has built up forces in Sumy Oblast across the border from Glushkovsky district of the Kursk Oblast. Russian military bloggers have published a grainy photo claiming to be a Ukrainian tank column advancing on Russian positions in Kursk. War Kitten, a Telegram channel with 400,000 subscribers, said the photo showed the Ukrainian tank column taking hits. The village of Berdyin lies around 10 miles northeast of Sudzha, a Ukrainian stronghold in the Kursk region, and has been the focus of fierce fighting. A Kremlin propagandist has commented and mocked the counteroffensive as a PR stunt designed to impress Trump. Though Ukraine may have multiple motives for launching the counterattack at this time, in the same way they had multiple motives for launching the original incursion into Kursk Oblast. Of course, leverage ahead of negotiations may be one reason, but embarrassing Putin may be another. Sergei Markov, a former Kremlin speechwriter, said Ukraine had only launched a counteroffensive in the Kursk region to show the incoming US president that it could still take the fight to Russia. Zelensky's logic is that he wants to show Trump, for his own political reasons, that the Ukrainian army is strong and that there is no need to capitulate to Russia, he said. Markov rarely talks sense or anything resembling reality, but even a Kremlin propagandist may inadvertently say something truthful once in a blue moon. The counterattack is too new and fresh to draw any real conclusions at this point. The direction of the main counterattack is not yet clear, despite Russian military bloggers claiming that the buildup of Ukrainian forces was spotted and known about. It seems that it still has taken Russia unawares. The Rybar Telegram channel said Ukraine had been preparing for months for a counterattack along the front line and that Russian forces were ready to repel it. The direction of the main counterattack is not yet clear, it claimed, and the maneuvers from the occupied part of the Kursk region may be diversionary. At least the Russians will be hoping that it's just diversionary and a small-scale counterattack. Well, that's all for now. We'll report back in the next few days as more verified details of Ukraine's counterattack in Kursk Oblast emerge.